Hey guys, this is Stephanie and I'm Stacks on Stacks on Stacks. Today I am coming to you guys with day 22, which is favorite childhood books. I might have been more excited about this one than any of the other tags. I love kid books. Like, I never grew out of it. I loved them when I was a kid. I love them now. I love kid books. I have a bunch of them that I grew up with, though not all of them. But I have a ginormous stack here, so I'm going to try and go through these pretty quickly, but they were pretty great. So my mom would read to me when I was a kid, and she was kind of amazing. I was the youngest of 5 kids, and we'd sit in the hallway just outside of my bedroom, and we would sit there and she'd read to me, and she would teach all day. When I was really young, she was going to college and working, and then she would come home and mom for the evening, and she would sit there and read me these books. And this was, I think she graduated when I was about 8 years old, so she would sit there and fall asleep, tip her head back, and but she'd read these books to me so many times I had them practically memorized. Also, I had 3 older sisters who were really great about reading with me, letting me read to them reading to me. And my sister I'm closest in age with loved reading about as much as I did, so she was always really great about reading with me. So when mom couldn't, Lisa could, Amy could, Jess could, somebody could read with me. And I just have some of the best memories of my life growing up with books. Now, I want you guys to keep in mind that I'm 36 years old. So I was a kid during the 80s and a little bit of the 90s. And I think a lot of people are going to say, Harry Potter was the best book in the world when I was a kid. Harry Potter came out when I was a junior in high school, and I didn't read it till I was in my late 20s. So that is off the table, as is Percy Jackson and a bunch of other books that didn't exist at that time. So these are my favorite books from when I was a kid, and I'm older than you, but trust me, these are still great books. So the first one is The Chronicles of Narnia. I specifically grabbed The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe because this is probably the one my mom read to us the most. I think she read this one to us almost every year, and she would do the thing where she reads like a chapter a night. We'd always be like, oh, read one more, read one more. And I honestly had this thing almost memorized, I'd say, by the 3rd year that she read it. And then I would read it to myself almost every year too, because I just liked it so much. In this one, we follow some kids, and this is during like World War II England. And basically they walk through a wardrobe into this other fictional world, and it's magical where animals can talk and trees can talk, and it's this beautiful place, except that it is always winter and never Christmas. And there's an evil witch that is ruling, and these kids, they have to save the day. This is actually the second in a series of 7. I have read the whole series and I like the whole series. You should read it too. Next one is Miracle Worker, and this is by William Gibson. And this is actually a book that is in play format. And I would actually read it with my mom, and I would be Annie Sullivan and she would be Helen Keller, and then we'd switch sometimes. This is one that I remember my mom reading to me maybe when I was in 3rd and 4th, 5th grade, somewhere in there. And it does follow the life of Helen Keller, early years when her and Annie Sullivan were first starting to work together. A book that my sister would read to me all the time was Half Magic by Edward Edgar. This one is following a group of kids during their summer off, and they have nothing to do and they don't want to get into trouble. They randomly find this coin on the street, and one of them puts it in their pocket, and they realize when they made a wish, it came true. But not the whole wish, half of the wish. So then they had to learn that this is only a half magic coin. You actually have to wish for twice a thing. So if you wish for $5, you're going to get $2.50. So you have to wish for $5 twice, or wish for $10 to get your $5. It is a super cute book. It's actually a series, and I think I've read the first 2. Haven't read the rest of them. It is a great series to read to your kids. My sister would also read to me Little House on the Prairie by Laura Ingalls Wilder. This is also a series, and I think my sister probably read me the first, and my mom read these too, probably the first 3 or 4, and then eventually later in life I read the rest of them. The last one's kind of depressing. But this is a series that follows a family that decides to go out and make a life for themselves on the prairie, and I think they go through Iowa, maybe Kansas, and then South Dakota, I think. And it's all from the view of the children. So it's a different kind of view, and it's a great view for a children's book. And one of my sister's favorite books, which I'm actually rereading, as you can tell from the bookmark in it, is A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. Now, my sister read this to me at a very young age, and I think she read me the first 2 or 3 in the series. She still loves this book. This is actually her copy. I don't own this book, oddly enough. and I had to borrow it to read it before I see the movie, which didn't happen, but that's okay. This is a book where we follow a somewhat awkward young teenage girl named Meg and her younger brother, Charles Wallace, as they kind of go off on an adventure to save their father. Now, this is like an epitome of a sci-fi book. This book was written in 1960. This book is not new. It's funny because somebody said, oh, that book came out when I was a kid, and I said, no, it didn't. You were quite young. This book came out in 1960. But I loved this book growing up. Now I'm rereading it before I see the movie. Like I said, that didn't happen because it was kind of foggy. And I think the last time I read it was probably 10 or 15 years ago. So I was like, I need to read this again. And I'm only like a third of the way through and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot how good this was. Different from the movie, but still good. My mom would also read a lot of Roald Dahl to me. This is James and the Giant Peach. She would also read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator. She'd even read them to her kids at school. So she didn't just read to me, she'd read to her entire class. This follows a kid named James who is living with his Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker, and he has a sad life, and he just wishes that he could just be carried away. And they have a peach tree on their property, and this peach is growing bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and people are coming, taking pictures, and it's so famous and everything. And then they find a way into the peach. And inside there are like human-sized insects and things like that. And I think they made a movie of this. I don't remember it, but it's great. It's one of my favorites from when I was a kid. I did like Charlie and Chocolate Factory, though the movies, both of them, were a little weird. My mom would also read Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. This is about a pig that is supposed to be killed. However, there's a spider who knows how to spell. So she would spell something up in her webs above him and then go hide and give him credit. So people are like, oh my goodness, that pig can spell. Apparently people are stupid in this book, but it was a book that I liked as a kid. And then we're getting to the slightly more kiddish books, which again, I'm going to go through quickly. I loved Dr. Seuss growing up. Some of the ones that my mom would read to us was Bartholomew and the Oobleck and the 500 Hats of Bartholomew Cubbins. Yeah, Bartholomew Cubbins. And I think I saw it on Mulberry Street. And my favorite is the Sneetches. I love the Sneetches with stars on thars. This is one of my favorite ones. But these are all books that were read to me when I was a kid, and then I think I like half memorized them and I would read them back because, well, they're Dr. Seuss, so they're a little silly, but you know, silly words are fun to say. I also loved Where the Wild Things Are. This is by Maurice Sendak. Now what's funny is my husband had never heard of this book before, and I used to just love it. Like, I just loved this book. And when I bought it as an adult, he'd never heard of it, and I was like, well, I'm gonna read it to you. And as I was reading it to him, I'm like, boy, this is kind of sending a bad message. It's about a little boy named Max who is a naughty little boy, and he gets sent to his room, and while he's in his room he falls asleep, and when he wakes up he actually runs away from home, and he runs away to this land where there are wild things, but he's not afraid of them, and he's bigger and badder than they are, and then he rules the wild things. And I'm like, so this is a very spoiled little boy who does naughty things and then is rewarded. However, I did love the book. The next book that I loved is actually, this is a collection of the Stregonona books. This is The Magical World of Stregonona. And I liked about anything that was by Tommy De Paola. He did the drawing and he also did the stories. And the Stregonona ones are kind of an older, I don't know, Italian, maybe, I think. Italian, probably. Stories. These kind of drawings. They always have a good moral to them and all that kind of stuff. And I bought this a couple of years ago, maybe last year, I don't remember now, but I just remember loving these books when I was a kid, and when they would come out with a new one at the library, I'd go run and get it. And I was actually my mom's little finder when it came to books at the library. Like, I'd go and I could find a book. And she would take me to the college library when she was in college, and they had a huge children's section, and I would just go and like pull a book off and sit and read it and then put it back and then pull another one off, and I was just in heaven. It was a huge and beautiful library. Probably isn't, but in my memory it is. The last one I have is just a little bit of Shel Silverstein. First one is Where the Sidewalk Ends, and my second one I have is A Giraffe and a Half. I loved these growing up. These are just a bunch of silly poems by a silly guy with words that are made up and topics that, you know, kids like to talk about, like farts and boogers and things that make them giggle. And A Giraffe and a Half, I think I got this from my niece last year, and she's only 6, so she doesn't read a lot, and she memorized it. My sister's like, oh yeah, she memorized it. She recites it to us at the table. She's like, we should read it. Never mind, I'll just tell it to you. And she just recites the book. Shel Silverstein is kind of an amazing author. He just writes poems that are memorable and fun and silly. So that is it. I know that was a long video, but there are just so many books that I absolutely love, that I grew up with, that I still love. I still love these books. Like if you got me this book, I'd be like, that's so great. Just like if you got me Ready Player One, I'd be like, that's so great. I'd still love them. I hope you guys had fun with this. Be sure to check out the other videos of everybody else who is doing the Videothon with me. That would be Brews and Reviews, Brooke Clark, Christina's Journey, Danny Buxton, and The Story with Serenity Dawn, all linked down below. Also, the prompts are down below, so if you think I'm having fun, because I am, you too can have fun. Feel free to take advantage, do any of the prompts you want to do, just let us know so we can watch those videos too. And comment down below your favorite book or books that you read when you were a kid. I want to know. I love kid books so much. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to come back tomorrow. Goodbye!